Hi there.
Hi.
You can all go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like and turn on your video. Hi there.
Hello.
G'day.
Nice to see you again, Phoebe, and nice
Yeah,
to
good to
see
be
you,
back.
Sophia and Teresa. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes for anyone else to join. I've just got to start by letting you know that unfortunately the person who was going to be chatting with us tonight, one of my colleagues, Kelly, who works with me at Elephant Publicity, who are working on the publicity and promo for Neighbours Day, is unable to join us this week, but she's going to join us next week for the Zoom. So we'll be able to talk then, but I've got plenty of stuff to talk with you all today through.
I'm not sure if it's just me or it's something wrong with your headphones probably, but I can't hear you properly.
Can you hear me, Phoebe?
I can hear you, but it's very blurry and distant.
It is a bit sort of muted.
All right, let me see what I can do. 1 second.
How's this?
Much better.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've just changed to my computer one.
Cool.
Right. So how's everyone doing?
Oh, excuse me.
You're
I have
totally
a jimmied
fine.
up system here, guys, so you may lose me multiple times tonight.
So I'm going to start with, and sorry, Phoebe, this will be a little bit repetitive for you because you joined us last week. But because we've got two people here who weren't in the Zoom workshop last week, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Luke. I'm helping out with project support for Neighbours Day Aotearoa. I've worked with Sissy on a couple of different projects in the past, including the Auckland Pride Festival when she was the chair of the Pride Board. I've got a lot of sort of multifaceted experience in events and that kind of thing. So I'm here to help answer your questions and hopefully show you some resources that will be useful to you and for your event. Last week we just had a little bit of a chat about what is an event, and I don't know if you've seen, there's a YouTube link, you can go and look at it, but I'll make sure I pop it in an email to both you, Teresa and Sophia, after tonight. If you wanted to go back and look at that, it's totally up to you. I am here working on Neighbours Day because I love to make events happen, and I love connecting communities and audiences with events, be it, you know, a massive theatre show or film or a small scale community event, something at a hall, a market, that kind of thing. So big or small, doesn't matter what it is. We love getting people out and in their communities, especially now that we're in level 1 nationwide. Phoebe, could I get you to briefly introduce yourself? You don't need to completely repeat everything you spoke about last week, but maybe just share with them where you are in the country and what your kind of involvement with Neighbours Day is.
Cool. So I'm on the North Shore of Auckland, and the big picture event that we're working towards is the launch of a community garden here in our local neighbourhood of Forest Hill. And on a smaller scale, during the week of Neighbours Day Aotearoa, we are, as a way of kind of publicising it, we're going to host a houseplant swap. So that is the particular thing that I'm keen to get details about.
And Sophia, would you like to share a little bit about yourself, where you are in Aotearoa and what your involvement with Neighbours Day is? And just a note, I'm making notes about what you're talking about as we chat. So if I'm looking down, it's because I'm jotting on my old school notebook.
That's okay. Yes, I'm Sophia and I live in Auckland, in a very awkward neighborhood, actually, because I'm just at the edge of Remuera and Alisley. So my neighbors are very mixed type of people, I would say. And I actually work in a community development company called Catalyze. So I've met Cece before. But this time I'm joining more like a community member because I really want to get to know my neighbors. And I've been living here for a year now. I'm renting, and I've only met two, on my left and on my right. And when COVID struck, I tried to put some flyers in my neighbors' mailboxes and tried to set up WhatsApp group, but the response was really low, and the engagement was low, and it never got anywhere. But I'm still very passionate about this idea to get to know my neighbors, especially living in the very quiet, no exit road. It feels like there is no reason why we can't just mingle and know each other. So yeah, I feel like a newbie in terms of getting people out and meeting each other. So that's why I'm here today.
That's awesome. I love it. And I'm probably actually maybe even, if not one of your neighbours, definitely in your community, because I'm in Green Lane with Ellerslie down the road and Remuera over there. So I know exactly what you mean of living in this really compact part of Auckland, but nobody sort of chats to one another unless you're sort of taking the dog out for a walk or taking the bin out, that kind of thing. And I definitely hear you there in terms of living in Auckland and trying to connect, and New Zealanders can just be so, if you don't have a chance to meet in person. So I think that's really awesome that you're here, and hopefully we can give you some ideas and tools. And what about you, Teresa? Where are you, and what's your involvement with Neighbours Day?
Very far away from Auckland, but it is still New Zealand, believe it or not, in a place called Gore. Have you heard of it?
I've been there. I've been there.
So I'm a community librarian down here. Just recently started the job at the start of the year. Awesome. So this was one of the first emails that I got was Neighbours Day, join in. And I thought, oh, that sounds fun. Since then, since signing up and going, yep, let's run this. This will be really good for our community. Particularly with, imminent lockdowns, rolling lockdowns that we kind of all have gone to hope not for, but probably expect. The huge importance of neighbours knowing each other and being there for each other so that no one's isolated and alone in those circumstances, and how the library could support that and promote that. But since starting with such enthusiasm, I realised that we're actually going to be moving our library premises a couple of weeks after Neighbours Day. So it's all kind of, we're a bit fluid and in limbo. So it's, I originally thought, oh, it'd be cool to do a plant swap, quite a big thing. And then I've had to scale right back and go, actually, what's really manageable for the staff and stress levels and everything. So at this stage, we're just looking to do a display, probably with the resources that we've got in the library in terms of the importance of reaching out to each other and neighbour, books that might have relationships between neighbours in them, so fictional things as well as non-fiction things, and also the Neighbours Day promotional things where we'd like people to be able to write a note to their neighbour, as opposed to on the Facebook thing where perhaps their neighbour would never see it. So that was kind of where we were heading, to have a wee area that people could stand there and scroll a wee note and then drop it when they go home, or perhaps we'd have the computer there as well, so they could type it in and upload it to the website as well. But awesome. Yeah.
That's great. Well, you took care of my next question is, do you have any plans for Neighbours Day, and what are those plans? So you definitely answered me there. Sophia, do you have any specific plans or events or ideas or anything that you're trying to get off the ground for Neighbours Day?
Well, I have a very basic idea. I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to actually do it, but I'm definitely ready to consider it, and just call out to make a community picnic just in our street, because we have some green space in between, so it's ideal for a nice picnic. So cool. Yeah, if I'm brave enough to get myself out there again, because last time I definitely got a few messages saying like, why are you doing this? Why? So people are really cautious and suspicious, I would even say. So yeah, I think it might be very simple, just inviting people to join us. I can get out with my children, set up a picnic and say, hey, we're gonna be there at this time, at that date, and see what's going on. that I would appreciate advice on how to communicate it properly, so people don't feel like I'm a strange person living in the corner. So
yep, absolutely. Well, I'm just going to start with something, which is to say that New Zealanders can be really, really cautious. I'm speaking as a New Zealander myself. I'm sure Teresa and Phoebe can understand. We tend to be really apprehensive and play things really close to the vest. And a lot of that gets broken when you meet in person.
Yeah.
Obviously, last year during COVID, when you tried to connect with your neighbours, you couldn't meet in person. So they think, oh no, maybe who's that weird person, or even I'm too anxious or uncomfortable to make that connection without having somewhere to break the ice in first. For example, if you run into them when you're taking out the rubbish bins, or you're going down to the corner shop, or you're taking the dog out for a walk. And I know that, for example, the person who lives right next door to me, right over the fence, I've lived here for maybe 3 years now. We've only just started to get to the point where we're talking in the driveway, and it's usually when she's out walking her dog. So I speak from personal experience and my own personal attitude that it can sometimes take a bit of effort and a bit of encouragement to get New Zealanders to come out of their shell. But what I'm going to be talking about a bit today is how you can make your messaging and really, really clear, so that people feel comfortable and not weird about something. Because New Zealanders can tend to be a little suspicious about things. But something like, for example, the platform of Neighbours Day Aotearoa, because it's a nationwide thing and there's a website and people have heard about it before, it affords a degree of legitimacy to what you're doing. And that's not to say that what you're doing was illegitimate at all, but it's almost like when people advertise a film and it gets those like award laurels on there from what festivals it's in, or, people will wait to read the review of the new theatre show before going to see it, kind of thing. They want a little bit of encouragement that they're not going to be let down, or that it's worth coming out of their shell and making that connection. Of course, we all know that it's always worth doing that and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, but hopefully we can talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do to make your messaging clearer, or just super clear and reassuring as well. So I'm just going to start. Does anybody have any burning questions to start with? Awesome. I'm just going to run through a couple of different things, and then we'll have time to open up for specific questions about all the different events and ideas that you have, because all of this stuff is very much applicable to all different types of events, from big scale events to smaller community picnics and plant swaps and that kind of thing. There's a million different ways to do an event, which is what we talked about last week. So I'm going to start with some really basic talk about marketing 101, which is, and you'll have to forgive me if you've heard all this before or it's new knowledge. It's old news, but we're going to just get into the who's, the what's, the how's, the why's, and the where's. So, for example, we've all got ideas for events. You've got your idea for a community picnic, you've got your idea, Phoebe, for your plant swap, you've got your idea for the activation at the library. When we're getting out and spreading the word about this, which can be all sorts of different things, from posters to flyers to texting people to setting up a WhatsApp group, popping a note on people's doors or in their letterbox, posting an event on Facebook, posting on Twitter or Instagram. Half of the time, some people will say, that sounds really, really cool. But if they have to work a little bit harder to figure out what it's about or where it is or why it's being put on, that's almost and can often be perceived as another hurdle to accessing the event. So if you think about whatever you're doing, be it a poster, a flyer, a Facebook event, sending somebody an email or a text, you want to make sure that you're covering off your 6 major bases, which is making it really clear who you are and who's putting it on. So that might be, you know, Sophia, a community member in near Ellerslie and Remuera, who's putting on a community picnic as part of Neighbours Day Aotearoa. It could be the Forest Hill Community Garden. We're doing this little pre-launch event in conjunction with Neighbours Day Aotearoa, or the Gore Community Library in conjunction with Neighbours Day Aotearoa. You want that to be clear, so they're like, oh, cool, I know who's doing it. And if you're saying it's part of Neighbours Day Aotearoa and to, you know, build community or meet people, they know why you're doing it. So it's pretty clear. You've got to also want to always include what the event is. And I mean, that's not hard for something like a community picnic or a plant swap, but with something maybe like what you're doing, Teresa, there might be a few different things. It's not a one event, but an ongoing maybe activation kind of thing. So maybe it's just making it really clear that, oh, we're doing this, this, and this. There's resources available. You can come and do notes for neighbours. And we've got a whole lot of different things that we've handpicked from our collection that can help, you know, inspire you and get you into the mood of community building and neighbours. So, and there's nothing wrong with in a Facebook event, or, you know, an email, making that really clear with bullet points or check marks or something like that. Or even, you know, if you're making a little flyer or something, just putting a, you know, kia ora, I'm Sophia, I'm your neighbour. As part of Neighbours Day Aotearoa, and after a year where we spent a lot of time in our houses not knowing one another, this is a chance to get to know one another with a community picnic. You know, or it's the same messaging, but this, for example, for the Gore Library might be, this is a chance to get to know your community library and how we can help you feel part of your community and participate in your community. And at the moment that people see, oh, you know, it's the library, or, oh, it's this community garden that's about to open, or, oh, it's my neighbour who's been trying really hard to get to know me and I've been stonewalling her. They're doing something for Neighbours Day. I've heard about this, you know, from previous years. Cool, this is, I immediately get what it's about. And then you always want to make sure you include when it is. For something like a Facebook event or something like that, it's, you know, you have to put the date in, but don't forget to put in, you know, the day and the time. And or, for example, if you've got an activation, just make it really clear that it's, you know, every day during library opening hours. Or if it's your plant swap, make it really super clear, you know, what day it is, that it's a, you know, date, time. It sounds really, really basic, but I think you might be really surprised how often people forget to include that information. And it's just like, it's a really basic black and white checklist that you can apply to something like a media release or a Facebook event, or just popping literally a handwritten note in somebody's letterbox, or including the information about it in your email out, whether that's like a big email to a database or just an email to the local people that you know. And then you want to include the why. We've already touched on that a little bit in terms of why you're doing this, but something like Neighbours Day in a country where people tend to take a little bit of encouragement to get out of their shell, you just want to make it really, really clear up front. This is Neighbours Day Aotearoa. This is community building, getting to know your neighbourhood or your community. And what is your goal? We're going to, for example, Sophia, it might be, we're going to get to know our neighbours by having a community picnic. Come one, come all kind of thing. It's, you know, or if it's a community garden plant swap, we're getting ready to launch a community garden, and we want to give you the chance to get to know the team and feel, you know, get to know us and learn a little bit more about it. So we're putting on this plant swap. So, you know, bring along your plants to swap, etc. Or for the community library, you know, that thing of like, you know, the library's here for you. We're inviting you to use the, you know, the occasion of Neighbours Day to come in and learn more, ask questions, or just pick up a book and read it. And that, which brings me to the last point, which is the how. People always need to know how they can participate. And even if you don't need people to do anything or bring anything, for example, if it's a free event, people want to know that confirmation, because the moment that they might have to ask the question, that's like, oh, that's too hard, I'm not going to bother sending that message or sending that email or asking the follow-up question. So it's that really basic, make sure you make it really clear who's talking to them. Sometimes, you know, that might be really clear if you're sending them a direct email, but if you're popping a flyer or a poster around, you want to make it really clear that, hey, this is a message from the Gore Community Library. Do you want to make it clear what's going on? We're doing a Neighbours Day event, and so we've got X, Y, Z going on. So you talk about the what it is. It's on at the library. You talk about where it is. You talk about when it is. It's all during the opening hours. And the how is the, you can just come along and check out a book. You can come along and ask questions. You can bring friends along. It's a come one, come all thing. If you're putting on a paid event, that's something like, oh, you need to book tickets now for, you know, $30 to $50 at ticketmaster.co.nz. People are used to, or generally speaking, people who go to events are used to clicking onto a nice little event page, be that on a, you know, a theatre website or a movie website, a cinema website, or even just reading it in the paper, having it all there for them, so they don't need to ask any more questions. So the moral of the story is share it up front. Don't overcomplicate it, but make sure you've asked yourself, have I made it clear who's talking to them, why I'm talking to them, what I'm talking about, why we're putting this event on, and how they can participate. And once again, I just need to emphasize that if participation is as simple as turning up, let people know that, because it's a further encouragement, and that's just breaking down any possible barrier that people might perceive to, you know, participating in their event, or your event, I should say. So that was my little marketing 101 spiel. I'm going to open up for any questions that anyone might have before I pop onto the next thing. Does anybody have any burning questions or immediate questions in the wake of that?
Do you have any advice about what the best platform is for advertising things, whether social media or paper or radio or posters?
I definitely do. Yeah. I was going to move on to that next, so we'll dive into that next. But does anybody else have any questions immediately after that little chat about marketing 101?
I'm just thinking through that checklist. So we just recently sent out our latest newsletter, kind of updating people, and there was a little section saying, you know, do you love houseplants? And basically giving people a general gist, but it probably didn't have, it didn't, like, I've suggested a date, but I haven't suggested a time. I'm just hoping I haven't kind of like jumped the gun, giving not enough information that people will kind of go, oh, I don't know.
I mean, you're totally fine, I think, because we're far enough out that you've got time to get in touch with them again and clarify, because if you're still deciding what day it is, there's nothing wrong with letting people know that something's happening, especially something like houseplants. Auckland people are obsessed with them at the moment. So I'm sure you'll get a lot of people's interest piqued, but it's maybe like when you do lock that in, you make sure that you share that again with them. Like, oh, here's this really cool event that we were talking about. We've locked in, it's definitely going to be this day from, you know, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And here's what you need to do, you know, bring along your cuttings and that kind of thing, and bring along your cuttings and a smile or something like that, you know. It's not rocket science. It's just making sure that for New Zealanders, we like things, we don't like to go out of our shells typically. And if we are doing it, we want it to be as easy as possible and not a bumpy ride, you know?
Totally. It's good.
Yeah. So I'm going to loop back to your question, Teresa. You start with basically whatever you've got. So if you've got a library, you've got space, you can put up posters, pop up the posters. Have you seen that there's posters and I'm sure you've seen the posters and resources available at Neighbours Day Aotearoa. So definitely pop them up if you've got a, you know, space to pop them up at the library, or for your personal event. I don't know if you feel comfortable, but you can if you have a poster or a flyer, just pop it in your neighbours' letterboxes. If you've got a poster file, you can always post that to community Facebook pages. You don't need to be doing a whole paid poster campaign. Usually if you've got your local community, you might have a couple of cafes, or, you know, obviously you work at a library, Teresa, but for you, Sophia, and you, Phoebe, you might pop down to your local library or community hall if there's one nearby, and ask if you can pop up the poster. It kind of changes from library to library, but generally speaking, they're community libraries. They're there to help the community. And the other thing is, you know, any cafes or local places like that where you see people popping up posters, I know it can be a little bit weird to go in and do the, oh, can I put up a poster? But people in those places kind of expect that if the poster wall's there, as long as you're asking and not just going and helping yourself. And, you know, hi, Phoebe, we're setting up a community garden. We've got a little event. Can I put up a poster, or can I put these flyers here? People love it. And you might even find that the people who work there will want to come along. I've been on both sides of that situation, the person working behind the counter and the person walking in and doing the, you know, hi, can I put up a poster? And I have to say, from my experience on both sides, introducing yourself and explaining why you're there and so you're not just some random walking in and putting up a poster on the wall, it helps so much. And that might sound like telling you how to suck eggs, but you'd be surprised how many people will just wander in and help themselves. And you're like, excuse me, what are you up to? Yeah, what are you doing? You can't rip down that poster or cover up that poster. But if they're asking you, you know, you've got a chance to help them, or they might just be like, yeah, go for it. We don't, you know, they're very casual. So you've got physical marketing, which is things like posters or flyers. Sometimes you might not need to do that. I mean, you might want to do that. You can print them, you can make them at home and print them out. There's also resources available on Neighbours Day, like the notes for neighbours. So if you feel like I don't have the capacity or resources to, you know, design a flyer myself, I mean, you can design a flyer yourself in Word. There's a number of free online tools that are designed to help you make invitations and flyers, but you don't have to do a big thing where it's a cost to you that you print something out. You could just do a handwritten note if it's a small scale, like community picnic, or just print out the notes for neighbours thing and write in the gap. And the note for the neighbour could be something as simple as, hey, we're inviting you to a plant swap, or we're inviting you to this community picnic. But for you, Teresa, you can still do that, even though like you're at a slightly bigger organization, being a community library. There's nothing wrong with just like popping a note in, even if it's your next door neighbors on either side and the person across the road, or somebody you know might like to really participate. Just popping it, hey, just letting you know we're doing this thing for Neighbours Day. I just wanted to pop in the note to say hi, and I work at the library, so pop in and I can show you what we've got. And you might find that just that eke of encouragement and making it really, really clear that they're welcome to participate in any way they want, they might go, oh, yeah, well, they've removed all the reasons that I would have come up with to come. They've made it really clear what it is, why they're doing it, that it's free, and that I can rock up between these hours. You know, you're going to make it even easier for them to find reasons to come, because they're not having to do the mental gymnastics of, oh, I can't be bothered figuring out what time it is and checking in where it is. So and you can even do the really simple thing of, if you're doing a handwritten note or a flyer, you can do a bullet point of boom, what, where, when, why, how. You might not need to do all of them, but you could do the what. Oh, we're doing a plant swap. Oh, we're opening up the library and encouraging you to come in for Neighbours Day. When is it happening? At X time on X date. Where is it happening? Pop in the location. And the how is it, you just rock up and you bring something to contribute to the picnic. You just rock up and bring plants, or you just turn up, and if you don't have a library card, we'll sort you out with a library card when you get there. Learn more about your library. And then, so posters, flyers, we've talked about. For these kinds of events, I know it can be overwhelming when you see people have like big scale poster campaigns and that kind of thing. Neighbours Day is having doing a big poster and flyer campaign around the country within our budget, obviously. But so there will be sort of larger scale like phantom poster runs with like large Max and A1 size posters around various towns in New Zealand. and as well as stuff going on online. So people will be encouraged to go to the Neighbours Day platform and sort of type in their neighbourhood and find out what's going on nearby. So you don't need to, if that's not part of your plan, which I don't imagine it would be part of any of your plans, of course, don't be intimidated by that, because we've got all these different resources available to us online, social media. So an answer to your question, Teresa, yes and yes. Do what you can with physical resources, but don't put yourself out, because everyone's online these days. So make sure that you put the word out on your Facebook page. People will naturally go to a Facebook page to look for information if they know that you're on Facebook. So something like a community library. I imagine you guys do have a Facebook page?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, awesome. So my first instinct, and I think a lot of people's first instinct would be, oh, let's go check in on Facebook and see if they've posted about it or made an event. Definitely make sure you're posting about it and make an event, and include all those basics of the who, what, where, why, how, and, you know, find a picture to put up. You can just find one off Google Images, you know, especially for something that's a free event and open to all. You don't need to overthink it. But definitely for somebody like you, Teresa, and I imagine for you, Phoebe, do you have a Facebook page that you guys have set up for the Forest Hill Community Garden? That's great. Yeah. So you're already building your own online community, and you're encouraging people within that online community to come out from behind their phone screens and engage. So definitely make an event and make sure that you're doing it from as Forest Hill Community Garden or as the Gore Community Library, rather than making your own personal Facebook event. The reason I say this is because when you're interacting as like an organization or a business, your events get treated slightly differently on Facebook, because it becomes, you've created it from a public organization. So it will have a further reach, as opposed to a private event, like if somebody's organizing a small drinks, a get together, or a birthday party. So make sure you create an event in your event, under your profile. So then when people click on Gore Community Library's Facebook profile, they can click on the events section and they'll see it sitting there. And you, with your Forest Hill one, you know, they'll click on the events. And the other thing with, in addition to it being open to all and getting sort of farmed out to everyone on Facebook that it might be relevant to, it gives you the ability to co-host with other Facebook pages. So immediately it's something like you can send Neighbours Day Aotearoa a Facebook request, and then it will, once it's accepted by us on the Facebook end, it will show up in the list of events. So if somebody knows about Neighbours Day and wants to figure out what's going on in their area, they can click on, and they don't know specifically to look at the community garden or to the library page, that they will go to the Neighbours Day Aotearoa because maybe they've seen the ad online, or, you know, they've seen the poster or something like that, and they will be able to find your event through that sort of, it's like a different way in. So for you, Sophia, it might be slightly different because you maybe not, it's a smaller scale thing. So you can definitely, if you're friends on Facebook with any of your neighbors, pop it on there and invite them to it. But maybe it's about making a Facebook event and then sending just the link to that through in your WhatsApp group that you made with people. And I'm not saying you have to create your own like neighborhood Facebook page so you can interact as an organization, because you're putting this on as an individual member of the community. So there's nothing wrong. You probably don't want, 100 people to turn up from all over Auckland kind of thing. That might not be what you're trying to achieve at all. So definitely, if you've got them on your network in terms of friends on Facebook, make an event, invite them to it, and that's where you can pop things like with the how, like maybe it's something like you can bring your dogs and you need to check if you're allowed dogs at green space, or this is a family friendly event, so please bring your kids along, and bring your bikes and that kind of thing, or bring sports equipment or something like that. But for you two, as in Phoebe and Teresa, don't make the mistake of setting it up from your own personal Facebook page. I've not done that in the past, but I've worked with people who've done that in the past and then thought, why is nobody clicking on my event to buy the tickets that are $150? And because your charge, it's not showing up to anyone because Facebook thinks that you've made an event that's akin to something like a small get together. The next step is, obviously, we don't just have Facebook, and you might have an Instagram, you might also have a Twitter. Post about it on those places as well. Obviously, we can't make events on those things, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't stop. That shouldn't be a reason for you not to use those platforms. If you've got a picture that you're putting together or you found for your post on Facebook, you can just crop that and share it on Instagram and make sure you're including the who, what, where, when, how, and why. And if you're sharing it on Instagram, you can do, instead of bullet points, you can use maybe like a little plant emojis instead. So people will want to look at it instead of, so you've got like little leaves instead of a bullet point, or maybe you've got like, popping the book emoji in there or something like that for the library. And just treating like that post as just, it's going to pop up and it's going to grab people's attention. And like same for you, Sophia, if you're friends with anyone on Instagram, or sorry, you follow anyone on Instagram, and you're on Instagram, you can share it on there. And there's nothing wrong with just popping a post or a picture of the green space up and say, we're going to have a community picnic here, bring along something to eat and any sports equipment or a guitar, or make sure to bring sunscreen, but come all, and all you need to bring is something to eat and a smile, and pop a couple of sun emojis in there and sports balls and that kind of thing. I say emojis because they do really, really well on both Twitter and Instagram. You can always pop some in your Facebook posts as well. It just doesn't tend to matter as much for something like Facebook. So the other thing is, in terms of social media, and you've already mentioned it, Sophia, is setting up a WhatsApp group. Or I know that last week one of our activators was talking about how working with members of the Chinese community and how they tend to use WeChat a lot more than our traditional Western social media platforms. So it's about figuring out the best way to communicate with your audience. For you, Phoebe, you've got a community on Facebook. You might have an Instagram page with a community. So it's not rocket science. It's just making sure that the information's up there. But
we're
for you,
super fortunate. We've got a Chinese cultural liaison who has set up a WeChat group for the community garden. So that's awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, that's so great. And there's nothing wrong with also tapping into resources. If you've got members of your team, for example, Teresa, who they're maybe really into one community or active on a different kind of social media platform or use a different way to communicate, you can just be like, hey, I'm just going to send you an email, copy paste the information that I've already posted on Facebook, so then you can just take it and pop it into your WeChat group or your WhatsApp group. The moment you've got all the information together in a Facebook page or a Word document, you've got something to refer to. Big scale events use a media release for something like that. They have a website for something like that. We've got the Neighbours Day website, so you can always point people towards that. But you can just point people, there's a post pinned to the top of our Facebook page. That's another thing you can do. You can, if you've got an event that you're really trying to push, you can pin the post to the top of your Facebook page by just using the 3 dots, like the more options where it goes, edit, delete, you can pin to top of page. And it just means that it's the first thing that comes up, even if you're posting stuff afterwards. It will stick to the top of your page. And then the other thing is, in addition to using these social media and messaging platforms, if people in your email, like you've got their email addresses, and you don't feel like it's invasive, you can just pop them an email. And if you don't want everyone to have everyone else's email addresses, just BCC everyone in, so it just looks like all you're doing is sending an email to no one. Or if you've got an email client that needs you to put in somebody to the to field, just send it to yourself, because your email address is already there. Make sure you're putting them in the BCC field, which is the blind carbon copy field for anybody who doesn't know. And then, nobody's going to see anyone else's email addresses, but you can just send one email to your list of 20 to 25 emails, or however many you might have. And it's just a copy pasted the same information that you popped on Facebook with a kia ora everyone, we're doing Neighbours Day, here's the information, and then maybe you pop the picture in there as in the poster or a Notes for Neighbours thing or the flyer that you've created. Once again, you're not having to create something new for all of these. It's just about sitting down, figuring out the best way to work out that who, what, where, why, when, and how. And if you've just, put it together in a little Word document or you've made a flyer, just keep using that, just keep referring back to the same thing, and then you're going to be sure that you have, if you've checked off that checklist of the who's and where's and what's, and you're just copy pasting the information, you don't have to think every time, oh, am I checking that this is the right thing? You're just copy pasting or forwarding it on to somebody. You don't have to do that mental gymnastics. You know that it's already taken care of. Sorry, I just talked for ages about that stuff. Does anybody have any questions, burning questions about that?
What would you say about neighborly? I'm not sure how commonly it is. Like, is it really something people use?
It changes community to community. I was actually just about to talk about Neighbourly, so you must have read my mind, Sophia. I think it's totally worth posting something on Neighbourly. If you find that nobody's picking it up, maybe, or like that nobody's responding, or that you're not active with anyone in your community on there, you might want to spend a little bit of time trying to find people to follow or, other pages to follow on Neighbourly. But it's definitely worth posting it on there. We post all the events that we work on in my publicity office on Neighbourly, if there's a Neighbourly page to be posted on, and that's everything from a small workshop to theatre shows to big, scale comedy shows that are touring around the country. It's just another channel for communication. I'm going to share with you a really marketing term, which is audience touch point. That is a very fancy way of thinking whatever, any point that the person that you're trying to access might interact with you or your organization. So an audience touch point is just anywhere that a potential audience member or neighbor to participate in your event, to put it out of marketing speak, might come across your information. So that's your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter, an email that you send, a poster that you put up, a flyer that you put out. You want to make sure that any of those options have covered that checklist that we talked about, but also you want to make sure that you're, Sophia, using every one of them. So if you're thinking, oh, there's a chance that one or two people, or maybe more than that, will pop it on there, it's really worth trying. And the other thing that you can do with Neighbourly is that Neighbourly, in addition to letting you post on a page within your own community, also allows you to make submissions for your events to your local community newspaper. Now, this is the same, not every single community newspaper is part of the Neighbourly network, but right now what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen with you, and show you, oh, just 1 second, I've got to change my Zoom settings so that I can share my screen. I'm going to show you the submission form for submitting an event on Neighbourly. Just give me 1 second here. I'm just going to unlock my screen sharing ability. Sorry, I just updated my software today. Oh no, it's wanting me to quit and reopen Zoom. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to the chat, and then I will also, sorry about that, best laid plans. I'm going to send this link to the chat, and I'll also email it directly to you. And I will, in the email, make a like a screenshot thing of the step-by-step process. Sorry, just give me 1 second here. So I've just sent you a link to neighbourly.co.nz/what's on. When you go to that page, you're going to find a drop-down menu that says select publication. What that page is it allows you to make an event submission to your local newspaper. So in Auckland, we have things like the Central Leader, the Eastern Leader, the Western Leader. some other towns, like for example, just read some out on there. You know, there's like the Cambridge Edition, the Hamilton Press, the Rodney Times, the Upper Hutt Leader. So these are the smaller scale newspapers, the things that aren't owned by, you know, New Zealand NZME and, you know, you're not your New Zealand Herald and your Dominion Post, but these are the free kind of circular ones that pop up in your letterbox for free. I'm just going to turn my light up because it's starting to get dark here. That submission form is really, really easy. It's super quick to fill out. It just asks you to pop in who you are, what you're doing, how people can participate, what the event is, pop a little bit about the event, and pop in there that it's part of Neighbours Day Aotearoa. And you can even, it asks you to just submit a short amount, like a summary of event. You can just use the hashtag NDA 2021, or, you know, it just doesn't need to be Neighbours Day Aotearoa, like it's just a Neighbours Day community picnic, or, you know, a Neighbours Day installation at the library, a Neighbours Day plant swap. It's super easy. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to fill out, less if you've already, you know, gone through that checklist and come up with your information. And as long as you're doing it 2 weeks or more before your event, the event is going to be likely to be included in the neighborhood newspaper, and it also goes up on Neighbourly as well. So for any of those, so for any of those events that are in parts of the country that are, you know, linked in with Neighbourly has like this network of not every single community newspaper, but quite a lot of them in New Zealand. So, and they automatically post it. And if you're the one that submitted it, you can even go in and edit it, or ask them to edit it. But, you know, if you've provided the basic details, you're not really going to go in and need to edit it.
That's cool, because I was going to ask if you talked about, like, I'm aware of Neighbourly, but I haven't really used it at all.
Yeah.
Well, that does pop up in my emails all the time. And you'd mentioned like following other groups to kind of raise awareness of yours. But are you suggesting that if we do this kind of other way, it will be ensured to get to the right?
It will go up on Neighbourly, and
places.
It will show up as an event within your community. So, for example, it would be the Northern Leader, I think, where you are, and
it might be the North Shore Times, is it? North Shore Times?
Yeah, might be that. Yeah. I think it might be the south of the bridge that it's the Leaders.
There is also the magazine called The Channel, I guess.
That's right. And there's the Rangitoto Observer as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're quite keen to get announcements if you send them with a broker notice.
Good idea.
Exactly.
Channel magazine.
And you almost just read my mind, which was the thing of, if you don't find that that newspaper of your community is on Neighbourly, because not everyone is. For example, in the Bay of Plenty, they have the Weekend Sun, and that's not part of the Neighbourly network. But it was super duper easy for me to go onto their website, find the contact information, and send them all the information they need, how, when, where, what, why thing, so that they could post it in their own networks and that kind of thing, and include it in the newspaper. And don't be scared of getting in touch with a journalist. Next week you'll meet Kelly, who'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you've ticked off the boxes of ensuring that you've told people who, where, what, why, when, and how, and you include all of that with a, you know, kia ora, we're doing this for Neighbours Day Aotearoa, here's all the details of the event. Include a picture when you're emailing directly to your local newspaper. Like if you were getting in touch with the Rangitoto Leader, you know, include a picture or a link to pictures or something like that. Because once again, just like trying to get New Zealanders out of their shell, trying to get New Zealanders who are really busy doing jobs and media to follow something up, if they, you know, they're more likely to go along with your story, or, you know, the easier you make it for them to promote your event, the more likely it is they're going to promote your event. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so we definitely will get in a little bit more to that publicity stuff next week. And the other thing is that you'll meet Kelly, who's leading the Neighbours Day project from Elephant Publicity. So you'll be able to talk to her about your projects, and she'll be super duper excited to hear about things happening on the North Shore. And I'm sure she'll be even more excited to hear about things happening in Gore, because we want to make sure that we're not just focusing on Auckland for the campaign. And the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is, sorry, 1 second. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about before I open it up for any questions, and lo and behold, I've managed to fill up almost the entire hour with talking, is use your own networks. I mean, if you feel comfortable, but you'd be surprised at how many people that you are personally friends with on Facebook, or, you know, any, you know, for example, book clubs or local work groups, or your own networks. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of different ideas, and I thought of book clubs immediately because my mum, for example, whenever she does something, will share it with her book club. And, you know, they don't always come along, but they're not going to come along if you don't tell them about it. My family, I work doing lots of different events, and they always asking me what I'm doing. So I make sure I post it on my Facebook page, and I send an email to the ones who are really diehard about it. So I'm not going to, you know, email my cousins down in Christchurch, for example, about something that I'm putting on here. But I've got cousins here in Auckland and who live not too far out, that when I'm working on something that's not too far away from them, or like in Auckland, or if it's coming to their town, I'll be like, hey, FYI, this thing's coming. It's really good. Here's the Facebook event link. And 9 times out of 10, somebody will click on the Facebook event, click interested, and then it just keeps popping up for them. You've taken the work out for them by sending them the information directly, and they can click interested on Facebook and get all the updates. And yeah, sometimes you can feel a little bit twee doing that, or a little bit weird doing that. But my only advice is to just sort of feel the fear and do it anyway. You know, you guys, all of your events will be awesome, from community picnics to library activations to plant swaps to all the things we heard about last week, from barbecues to dances and markets and all sorts of things. The reason we put them on is because other people have put them on and we've thought, oh, that's a really cool idea. So we're not the only one who thinks that these ideas are cool. We know that, you know, the libraries are there for a reason, and they've been around for a long time. We know that everyone loves houseplants, and we know that everyone's got to eat. And after the year that we've had, everyone wants to do these things in person. Well, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people will want to be doing these things in person. So give them the chance by selling yourself as best you can. And part of selling yourself as best you can is making sure you've checked off all the basic who's, where, what's, and how's, and got the word out as many places as possible. You don't have to spend money to get the word out there. You do have to make sure you're hitting the different channels. So, I make sure that I put up the poster at work in the local cafe, and that I email my colleagues at work about it, or put it into the work chat, that I tell my book club, that I tell my cousins, they tell that family that I always see around the corner, or I pop a note for a neighbor in there. And you know, it might take you a couple of hours to do that on a Saturday morning. Sit down in your computer and make a Facebook event and share it to your chat or something like that. Email it off to a few people. But once you've done that and you've got something you can copy paste from or forward from, the ball will keep rolling. And you don't need to overthink it as well. It doesn't need to be a big fancy to do. It just needs to be clear communication. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
The issue is to all becomes a fear to stand alone in the middle of the street and no one's showing up.
Yeah. And hey,
at least you've got kids though. The kids make all the difference in the world, eh?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's an idea. I don't think that it might work too well for larger community events, but what I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go and knock on the door of my closest neighbors and make sure that the date suits them and they are keen to come. So if I have at least 2 families, or maybe 3 families, it's gonna be easier for others just to have a pick in the window and just come. Maybe.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Sounds exciting, actually.
Yeah, and honestly, you and your kids having a picnic there constitutes an event. But yeah, if you knock on the door of your close neighbours and you know that there's going to be a couple of people there, sometimes people might, oh, I'm gonna go to this community picnic, but I'm gonna wait and see if anyone else is there before I leave my house. Yeah. So if you know that you've got at least one other person coming, you guys are gonna have a good time. Then they'll say, oh, that might be the encouragement they need to come out and join you. And then joining you and meeting you face to face, sharing some food, kids getting to know one another, enjoying the sun, enjoying the shared green space. That might be just the encouragement they need to actually respond to the WhatsApp group or understand that you get really good intentions in trying to get to know your neighbours, and that actually it's a really good thing to be able to know the people who live nearby. Yeah. So door knocking, I mean, I get door knocking off quite often here. I don't mind it. It's fine, as long as, and 9 times out of 10, not really trying to sell something, they're just trying to share information. I don't, there's nothing wrong with that, especially for something as genuine as community building. Yeah. And if you don't feel comfortable doing door knocking, you can always do a note for neighbour in their letterbox, which you can print out off the website. Yeah. And the other thing that we talked about last week, which it might work for you, is that you could, Sophia, is that you could get your kids to, I don't know how old your kids are, whether they just draw something or write something or that kind of thing. So maybe it's like they draw a picture of a picnic and it's like on the back of the notes for neighbours, or, beside the picture you write, hey, we're having a picnic at this time. We would love to see you there and meet you and bring the kids if you've got kids, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Anyone else got any other questions? I know that you, Teresa, will have a number of resources available at the library, and I just would encourage you to use them, whether it's just popping up stuff at all the different counters near the self-checkout, where people issue their books, and post about it on the Facebook page, and you can keep posting about it, or you can just pin it to the top of your Facebook page. But yeah, if you build it, they will come. If you make it easy for them to come by telling them who, what, where, when, why, and how, especially in New Zealand. You know what we're like here in New Zealand. Yeah.
So true.
Phoebe, may I ask where exactly at the shore you are?
We're in Forest Hill. Do you know, between Milford and Castor Bay kind of area? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I know quite a lot of people from community centres at the Kaipatiki area. It's like Pad and that side. But as an idea, from my conversations with these organisations, maybe just try to team up with other local community groups. Just they're really keen to share other people's news as well.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Thank you. It's a good idea. Use our networks, eh?
Yeah, use the networks. And the other thing is, I know we've talked a lot about going to the library and doing an event at a library, but and I'm sure this is not news to you, Teresa, but for you both, Phoebe and Sophia, libraries are a great resource. They're an incredible place to not just learn but to connect with your community through community notice boards, through sharing events. Maybe they've got different libraries do different things because they're all run by amazing individual librarians, but you will find that they've all got a passion for sharing information and building community. So it's going to depend on the library, your local library, what they have available, but there's nothing wrong with sending an email or popping in and getting in touch and just saying hi and asking what's available, or inviting them along to your event as well.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm conscious it just went past 8:30, but I've got time to stick around if anybody's got any more questions. I just don't want to keep you all too late.
That's been awesome, super helpful. Thank you. I've got so many ideas.
A pleasure.
Thank you for
the it's such a pleasure, of course. Yeah, and hey, I will keep an eye out for your event, Sophia, because I might even be considered one of your neighbours.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, everyone.
Awesome.
You can all, if you want to get in touch with me, I think you've all got my emails, but if not, I've got your email, so I'll be getting in touch with you with the neighbourly submission form and that kind of thing that I mentioned.
Cool. Thank you.
But we're here to help, and Sissy's there to help, and Neighbours Day is there to help. So, you know, just get in touch and ask if you need a hand with anything. But you've all got great ideas. They're all different and unique, but awesome nonetheless. And I can't wait to see them come to life. And I might see some of you all next week at the next Zoom. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Luke. Cool.
Pleasure.
Nice
Have
to
a
meet you
great
guys.
night.
See
Take
ya.
care.
Bye.